on ground. So today we are working around moving your idea from just being an idea to it becomes a minimum viable product. And Lutachi will be walking us through that. But before we go deeper into that, I would just love to give a little intro about our speaker. So from what we know, I think Lutachi is a product designer. She's a product designer. Yeah, she's a product designer at Nestcoin. I hope I'm right with that. She's a product designer at Nextcoin. She has 5 years working experience, and she's a two-time founding designers at companies that are shipping really top products out there. And yep. I think that's all I could say about her. And she'll come on and tell us a bit more about herself shortly. But I'd just love you to, with your emoji, welcome Anidi Lutachi, our speaker for this section. Why I just join her in facilitating and making sure that everybody have a nice time here. But one thing I just want to encourage everyone is if you're on this call, please don't leave. Please, if you're on the call, just stay. Let's have this session together because a lot of people will be joining us shortly. So welcome, Lutachi. Good evening once again. It's nice having you around.
Hi guys. Thank you for the intro. Thank you for the welcome. I hope we have a nice time here learning about this session today. Yeah, I don't know if you want us to start now or are they like people that we want to wait for?
No, actually, we're not going to be waiting for people. They'll be joining us shortly, and we can start now. We are good. It's nice having you, and at least thank you for taking out your time to join us on a Sunday that you must be very busy, I guess. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Let me just let me know if you guys can see me and see myself, sure.
Yeah, we can see you. We can see you. We are good.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me share my screen. 1 second. Okay. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can. We can see your screen.
Nice. So for people that maybe stumbled upon this call, we're going to be talking about how to take your idea to launch, right? So taking something from 0 to 1. As people that are early in your career as a designer, I'm sure that there's a lot of worry and concern about how can I even start a project? What are the things I need to do? I'm scared of like a blank Figma screen or a blank screen. How can you start putting, pen to paper? So this is a junior designer's roadmap to MVP. I'll give a little bit of intro about myself, just because that makes sense. So like Practice Managers had mentioned, I am a lead product designer at Nestcoin. Nestcoin is a venture studio backed by Coinbase. I'm sure that's the popular one, and then Social Capital, Electric Capital. I'd like to give like some fun facts as well, because I think that helps break the ice. I have a problem with bread and tea. I will not be explaining that one just by the way it is. And then I like to describe myself as a high agency operator because I've mostly only worked with startups. I've always been like a founding designer. I have a very high sense of urgency and ownership and responsibility across product development, product building. So I just know what it means to move quickly, to move at a very high speed, and also to retain a level of crafts across different product touch points. I also created this design talk show. It's called Behind the Ship. I spotlight the journeys of designers, engineers, makers at heart. So far, I've recorded 6 episodes. I don't know if anybody here has heard of Behind the Ship or seen any episodes, but show of hands if you have. Um, and then I'm here to tell you one thing. Of all the great products, the Apples, the Google Maps, the whatever, the Macs, the Steve Maddens of this world, they didn't start as being this great product that everybody know and love. They started from ground zero, like they had nothing. All they could do was just launch quickly, test the ideas, experiment, you know, make some mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and then go to something, right? So even as a junior designer, you too can also do that, right? And that's what we call building an MVP, a minimum viable product. Right, so it's not about doing like everything perfectly at the first time. It's about doing the right things at the right times early enough so you can ship value. I'm going to be explaining, breaking down what an MVP is, and what the roadmap to that MVP looks like. So go to the next slide. So I like to describe an MVP. I mean, when you go to the dictionary, there's a bunch of different meanings that you see. If you started doing some personal reading, you've also stumbled upon just what that means. But I like to describe it as the smallest valuable experience that you can ship early. And I'll explain, right? I'm calling it the smallest valuable experience. Keyword there is valuable experience. So before you're building a project, you have a product that you want to build, you're starting a project. So before you even open Figma, before you start worrying about, oh, what's the font size? What do I want the app to look like? Where can I get inspirations? Who has done this before? You need to, if you're the designer, core designer of the team, if you're building this alone, you need to ask yourself and within your team, what is the most valuable experience that you can give to your users given their goals, right? So are you also thinking about what is the business goal as well? So I'd like to give a very common analogy that people that are trying to educate people about MVP use. So say you set out to build a product in the transportation industry, right? You're going to quickly discover that your user goal is to take people from point A to point B. That is the most valuable thing you can give to the user. That is their one single goal. So when you set out to build an MVP for these users, you won't start by building like a whole car or a ship because they need to move from point A to point B. So the question is, how do you decide what to prioritize first on that roadmap for someone that's trying to build a product, right? So a lot of the times, sorry, move too quickly. So a lot of the times, you're tempted to move. You're tempted to just say, okay, I want to build a car. Okay, let me do like the first wheel, and then build the second wheel, and then put the trunk, and then put the bonnet of the car. But that is not. If you ship a wheel, a tire wheel, that is not. That is a small, like you said, I said it's the smallest requirement. That's a small requirement, but that is of no value to someone that's trying to move from point A to point B. Again, you have to go back to understanding what your user goals and what your user needs are. Yes, a wheel is a small requirement. Yes, you can ship a wheel fast, but it's not of no use to the user. So going back to the definition of how I like to define an MVP, the smallest valuable experience. If there's nothing you take away from this call, I want you to take away this thing. The MVP is the smallest valuable experience that you can ship early, right? So your MVP is not just adding stuff and removing stuff like this analogy of a car. Someone is trying to build something that takes someone from point A to point B. You can't just add, okay, let me add a wheel, Let me add a second wheel, let me add a third wheel, so you have 4 wheels, because that's like the fastest thing you can do. That does nothing. If you ship a wheel, that does nothing. So that is not the way. If you're trying to ship something in, do the right thing at the right time, the right way to roadmap your MVP is to prioritize and strategize holistically. So define what your user goals are. It has to be very, 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 very clear to you. If you don't have that, don't proceed. If you don't know what that is, you can't do anything with that. So that is your first step. Define your user goals. Then before you can then go to looking at everything holistically and trying to prioritize or try to decide what to ship first and trying to strategize, right? So it's not just about someone needs a car, let's do a wheel, let's do another wheel. You have to think about, okay, what are the other ways people can get from point A to point B? What are the smaller valuable things we can do? So in these analogies, you're saying, let's build a skateboard first, right? Skateboard is just made up of a base and 4 wheels. That's easy enough to build and gets you a user from point A to point B, which is their goal, right? So this is an analogy I like to use always, 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 because it quickly shows you how important knowing your user goals are and how strategic you need to be and fast you need to be when thinking about MVPs. Also give you a framework for that you can use in the world of today. So it's called a must-have, right? So finding out what is your must-have, what is your should-have, and what is your could-have, and what is your won't-have. So I'll give an example, another example. How many of you know the product Post Hearts? You can show your hands. It's called Post Hearts, founded by this product that helps you make letters and basically write letters on the internet and download it. It's sort of trended on Twitter in the past few weeks. Show of hands. Nobody here? Called Post Hearts. Nobody here has ever heard of the product or used the product or seen something about it on Twitter. Okay, cool. I'll share the link just because it's something that I think you guys can check out, and because the person that founded this product is a designer as well, so you can see what's possible. Let me share the link. This is the link. Called Post Hearts. It allows you craft. It's a tool that allows you craft letters on the internet, right? So I spoke to the founder of this product. They shipped this thing in 2 weeks with a team of 4 people. There are 4 in total. And the outcome of that was that another team trying to do the same thing outside of Nigeria tried to acquire them, right? So then I had to ask them questions about, like, how is he able to even ship this MVP that is useful and gain this kind of hype in a very short amount of time? Like, what was the things that you guys had to prioritize in the beginning, right? So he talked about how they needed to figure out what was most important to them. Right? Let me see if I can. Someone is. I can hear someone basically. So let me see if I can show what the product does. I'm not sure the screen. Probably I'll get to that at the end of this call, just so I have enough time to cover my slide basically. So basically, Post Hearts was, for you to write your letter and then download the letter. They could have said, okay, you want to have your friends come and write with you, or you can share to your friends inside, or you can have an ability to print it, or just do different. There are just different features that you can add and you can think about when you say, okay, I want to design a tool that helps people write letters on the internet. But these guys said, you know what, we're just going to make a tool. You write your letter, You select your background, if you want a paper, if you want a I don't know, different types of background styles and textures, and then stickers, which was their delighter, right? So that was their minimum, that was their smallest valuable experience that they had, right? And that's where they stopped. They made it super, super beautiful. They shipped it in, they were strategic in their timing. They shipped it just on the day before Valentine's. So people use that to send letters to their loved ones. You know, everything about what they did was super strategic and super prioritized. I'll get into what the product actually looks like at the end if there's time. But yeah, so they use the framework of, if we don't have this feature, will users still use the product? Will users still love the product? If the answer is no, then there's no point, right? We're not going to do it. So that's just what that framework looks like. So prioritizing, doing the right things at the right time moves you closer and closer to your big user goal and your business vision, you know, in this analogy, to build a car. So you can see here, they started with a skater to a scooter, to a skateboard, to a scooter, to a bicycle, to a motorcycle, then eventually a car. So at each point, you're moving closer and closer to your goal without removing value, removing value from your users, as opposed to the other one where you're just shipping bits and pieces of things that are not of value to the user. That is the core difference. If you can take away this thing from this call, you're good, and I'm happy. So I'm going to give a case study closer to hearts, right? I talked about Onboard and how Onboard is a payments app. Okay, I actually didn't say that, but I work at Nestcoin. Nestcoin builds and incubates products that are finance products that are powered by blockchain technology, stable coins. So they try to facilitate payments, international payments with, you know, stable coins, crypto, blockchain. So at first, this is not where we are today. We have like USD cards. Today we have you can have people send you money, so you can receive money in dollars, you can spend money with your cards, you can transfer your money to like local currencies. So say you receive a payment from a somebody, one of your clients overseas, and you're looking for a way to spend that money to spend that money in Nigeria, or someone that is in Kenya, or someone that is in Ghana, you can convert that money Onboard, right? That's what we have today. You can also do cross-border. So you're in Kenya, you want to receive money in your Ghanaian account, you can do that Onboard. So there are different things you can do with a payments app today, but that's not where we are a few months back, right? So we started as just like a wrapper. We just allowed people to send money in terms of send crypto and receive crypto. That's what we had. So this thing you're looking at now is the sign up screen. So you can see that this one doesn't even look designed. This was dev led. The dev just sort of built this wrapper around the core technology. So after a few iterations, we got to this stage where we tried to elevate the product UI. That's the first thing you can see. It looks better a bit. And then we added other functionalities like, okay, users can now swap their currency, right? They're not just sending and receiving and swap their currency. We built it with a lot more trust. People can say, okay, this looks like a stable enough product. I might want to put my money here. Before we now got to the stage where, you know what, let's make it a lot delightful, that immediately you look at this, you just want to keep looking at it, right? Outside the other like functionalities, like, okay, we give them virtual USD cards, and then they can now do a lot more things with their transfers and things like that, right? The UI looks great. And then, so what we have today, where we have like the USD accounts and then your cards and then your cryptos just embedded in one product. So it feels like this comprehensive fintech product, right? So we got here not by doing things by doing things incrementally in a way that makes sense. Someone's hands is up. I don't know if it's a question or if that's a mistake. Abdullahi, actually.
Hi, Abdullah. You have a question or something? You could drop it in the chat box while the session is on. Sorry, Lutachi, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so so now the product that we have today, we have the accounts, we have the USD accounts, you have your crypto, you have your cards. I was saying that we got here because we made incremental changes but at each point that we ship those incremental changes, they were of value to the user. They were not bits and pieces of things that doesn't connect or make sense to the user at that point. They were the smallest valuable experience that we could give the user in record time, right? So a lot of the times when people are thinking about roadmaps and how to go from step 1 to step 2 before you now launch your product, they think that it is this linear process. Like you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and you get to the end point, your end goal, your business vision. But that's a lie, and I'm here to tell you that, right? The reality of product building, of MVP building, of what that roadmap would look like, this is what it looks like. It is just pure chaos. Nothing is linear. You're not certain of all the outcomes that you can get. You're not sure where to start or like what are the best next steps to take. So the question now becomes, how can you gain the confidence when you have to build an MVP? How can you start when you're faced with that uncertainty of a blank Figma page, of like the new idea of an ambiguous idea, or just an idea that nobody has really done? So you can't even say, oh, let's just copy what this guy did. This is the exact same thing, right? So the number one thing, the one advice that I would give is to be okay with starting with a lot of curiosity, with a lot of questions and experiments and iterations. Because when you do that, you'll find that at the end of the day, you're answering your own questions along the way. So, right, I said the first step when building an MVP, I want to refresh for people that are just still joining, is to define what your user goals are. If you don't have that, don't proceed. What is the core user goal? What are they? What do they want most especially from your products, right? If you're able to define that and marry that with your business goal, then you can say, we have something and we've understood our users and we can start to put pen on paper. And when I say putting pen on paper is, I mean, you can start prototyping, which is now the next stage, right? So you understand the user, you have defined the problem, you've understood what the minimum valuable experience that you can ship is going to be. Then, you can get you can get your hands dirty by saying, I want to start prototyping and learning fast from the user. So I think this is the one that a lot of us are aware of, conversant with the actual designing, opening Figma, figuring stuff out. Sorry, excuse me. Looks like I feel like all of us here have a very comfortable sense of, prototyping, actually designing stuff on Figma. So here, I want you to, before you actually start like figuring out colors, figuring out what your font size is going to be, have you thought about things from a high level? So what I mean from a high level, from like user flows, what does the architecture of your product looks like? So doing that means that you have to sort of do some sketch, do some sort of user flows, whatever that looks like, to just get started, right? Before you actually start building like the mock-ups that you can click and give to users to test, it's always going to be important to start with some form of high-level knowledge of what you're trying to do. Because if you have no inclination of what you're trying to do, you're going to spend a lot of time prototyping. And the thing about MVPs is that you're lost for time, especially in startups. Within doing that within a startup, you're trying to go to market as quickly as possible. You're trying to get the stuff out there. There's going to be a lot of pressure on your head. So have a very like have a very common base level of, okay, what's my high level? What's this high level? What are we trying to achieve here? Once that is done, you can start, that's where the fun starts. You're going to prototype, drawing all these kinds of things, figuring stuff out, moving stuff around, doing the actual designing, actuating, doing that back and forth. Before you can now say, okay, I want to show this to somebody else. But when you're prototyping, never make the mistake of doing that in isolation or doing that in a silo. Or explain. You're within a team, you're the only designer, you have a PM that's close to you, or maybe not. So maybe you're just talking to the founder, but if you have a relationship, you're just texting back and forth on WhatsApp, whatever that is, Slack. And then you're like, okay, I need to go and start the design. So you start the design and you close off. You don't communicate with the founder, whoever the PM. You just want the thing to be like perfect in your head before you can share. Say, okay, see the work. So that is usually the mistake I see that a lot of people make. The thing about doing that, zoning off and doing your own thing, is that when you come out, you figure out that you've made a lot of mistakes. Not mistakes in terms of what you've actually designed, but it doesn't meet even the business expectations because you didn't have external insight early enough. So insight from like the experts, which is like the CEO, whoever the users that are going to actually be using the products, maybe your early users. So my advice is to don't spend too much time prototyping, especially at first. If you're going to spend any time prototyping, do it in a way that feels open, right? Communicate a lot with whoever is the closest stakeholder to you at that point. You guys are supposed to be best friends, best buds at that time. Like you do something, they are integrated in the design process, in the prototyping process. It's not something that you just stay far off and do your thing and then come out with this grand big idea. That's not the reality of prototyping in this time and age. So the earlier you can prototype, the earlier you can test, the earlier that you can validate the design decisions that you made, because at the end of the day, you're just making decisions on decisions on decisions. You decide that the color of the button is going to be purple, or you decide that the layout is going to be in this way. Everything is a decision. So the earlier you can bring out that prototype, the earlier you can validate the design decisions or toss stuff out. You're not wasting any time. So you can use tools like Maze. You can just share even like Loom walkthroughs, or just jump on a call and show somebody, share your screen like I'm doing now. And you can just ask questions and learn something very real from your user, because as designers, we have a lot of intuition. This is what we feel, this is what we believe, is an opinion. And that bias is reflected back at what we are designing, what we are putting out in the world. That's not a bad thing, but you need to check it with what's the reality of a situation is, of what you're trying to, of an industry. For example, the car industry, transportation industry. The reality has to match your intuition. So for designing your prototype, there's also the question of when should I do it? When should I focus on speed, or when should I focus on quality? That's always something that happens. How do I balance speed and quality? When should I know what to do and when to do it? My rule of thumb is usually when you're confident with a solution, then you can focus on quality. But if you have no confidence, or you have questions about, like, okay, this solution that we've come up with, or this solution, like this problem we're trying to solve, then you need to focus on, you should tilt more to speed. So it's a thing of tilting either this way or that way. The more your confidence is, the more the level of your confidence, you should be tilting more to quality, because you have for certain, like you have a very certain intuition, and almost like intuition, that's product sense, that this makes sense, right? This is what we want to do, so it needs to be in the best possible way for people to enjoy it. But if you're saying, well, I don't really know, I think it's this, I think it's that, then you should be tilting more to speed, so you can learn from this thing fast. You can just learn from it. A lot of the times, as product builders, as product designers, um, a lot of our decisions are from intuition. That's why the best product builders have done it for a very long time. They have a lot of experience just doing this one thing, shipping products. So your intuition and level, the things that you know, grows with time, grows with the people of these days call it product sense. How it's almost like common sense to the layman, right? How can you build that muscle of just knowing that this makes sense? Um, like I said before, like I was saying, you can't go into isolation because you're prototyping or building an MVP. You have to collaborate, right? Design is a team sport. So your best friends are the PM, your developers, right? You guys are not supposed to be fighting. Sometimes you fight, but you make up at the end of the day. These are your best buds. They should be the people that you ask questions, that you bounce ideas with. Never lock up yourself inside Figma. Never be like, okay, I've just done this thing. Let me hand it over to the developers. Let them figure it out by themselves. You run into a lot of problems very quickly when you do that. Um, because there's now a miscommunication or misunderstanding between what you've done in your head and what the business goal is. So you have a problem with the PM, and then what is technically possible. So you have a problem with the developer. So you see how you just build this triangle of chaos with the best people that you're supposed to be collaborating with. So design is very, very much collaborative sport. And you need to spot your mirrors, and you need to spot your errors and mistakes as early as possible, very early as possible. So immediately you start putting, your pen on your Figma, share with somebody, share with somebody external from you. You're going to learn a lot from that. You're not designing to impress, like, oh wow, this is amazing. You're designing to make sure that everybody's on the same page with your users, with your business goals. Everybody has to be on the same page at some level. Of course, there's room for disagreements and opposing views, because I mean, everything is an opinion in some level. But then it has to be done in a way that feels intentional, with intention. If there's going to be a trade-off made, everybody knows why we're making that trade-off. If we can't really get a certain level of the design because like of a technical constraints, everybody know that that's what we're doing. So that's what I want to say there. Just so I can recap, I'm going to try to recap everything I've said, right? So build an MVP, going from idea to launch, you have to start with understanding. Define what your goals are, your user goals, your business goals. Figure out what is the smallest valuable experience. Figure out what is your smallest valuable experience. You can't go wrong with that. That is really where the gold lies. If you can figure that thing out, you're set for life. If you don't have it, I would advise to start prototyping, or like you can figure yourself out in the way. When you have that done, you can then prioritize, strategize, look at everything holistically before you can then start to, prototype and test and collaborate with people that you're designing with. Like I said, the roadmap is non-linear. right? It's chaos. So you're rinsing and repeating, you're going back to the drawing board. Never be afraid of going back to the drawing board, because it is almost always the situation. You're going to learn something that takes you either one step back or takes you to ground zero and say, you know what, we've been doing this all wrong. We've been thinking about this all wrong, and we have to go back to the drawing board. Um, I want to know if you have any questions, but this is the end of my talk. I hope that you take something away from this. I hope that you have questions at least. Thank you. You can send me your questions. This is my Twitter. Yeah, I'm excited to have done this. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Lutachi. It was an amazing section with you, and I'm sure everyone here is excited to have you. So I believe there's a question in the chat box, but before that question, I would just love to bring on one or 2 points that you could just touch before our students could give their questions. It's so nice, and we really appreciate your presence with us today. So first of all, one amazing thing that caught my attention about this section is the fact that the last DDS we had was something introducing, like kind of introducing us to Web3, blockchain technology, and stuff like that. And basically, you coming on this, you are someone that is, I think you actually niche down to the Web3 part of design, kind of, and you are basically working on, I could guess you are working on more decentralized products than just the normal Web2 stuff. So that's an amazing coincidence anyways, and it's fantastic. But one of the question is, if we as a designer decides that, okay, I want to kind of maybe collaborate as a co-founder on something and stuff like that, and understanding the roadmap of getting that done, right? Because one of the major goal of this section is the fact that it's not just talking about, or it's not just relating this to us as a designer. We have so many big guys here, which they might have vision of pushing out products out there sometimes, and understanding this MVP kind of brings that vision closer. Because if you look at, I want to do this stuff, and you are not, maybe you're looking at the whole product as a whole, and you don't want to push out maybe a smaller version first and just see how it goes and stuff like that, you might not be able to achieve your dream. But having like an MVP means there's a starting point and you can scale on as time goes on. So if we as designers decide that, okay, I want to have like my own product, or I want to be a co-founder with someone on a product, how do you start this process, and how do you nurse that vision till it becomes a reality?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I tried not to niche down to like design. As you see, I tried to interchange builders and like design. And before I answer this question, I believe that I want everybody to, after the call, watch this episode that I interviewed Ayomide. I'm going to keep saying his name. Ayomide is a designer. He works at Brass. He's product designer at Brass, a product called Brass. Before that, I think he was at Lemon. I might be wrong. But basically, he founded a product called Postcards. Postcards allows you, is a tool that allows you to write letters, and then write letters that feel like handwritten on the internet, and then download it and share with your friends, right? So they shipped this thing in 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks, they had one developer, him, the designer, working on it, and then one of their friends, which is also a PM. And at some point, I think after the release, they had a brand designer as well. You can see that, and you're going to see this in the interview, but he tried to figure out how to like cadence the things that he builds, right? How can I have the design, I have the idea, I'm the designer, I'm also like a founder in that sense. You're the person that the idea had come from, and you're trying to put this team together to get this one goal out, right? So he talked about starting with your goal. What do you want to achieve here, right? If you want to get people to, if you want to make letters that feel like letters, you're making digital letters, but they feel like real letters. That is your goal. That is a business goal. You want people to feel something, that they feel like they're holding real cards or they're writing real letters, sorry, right? In a way that feels genuine and you have that feeling of nostalgia. If you're not able to create this very unique and strong sense of a vision, you can't really get past, or maybe you can, but it wouldn't really hit as much, right? So why I bring up Ayomide and Posat a lot, because their success in a way was almost instant. People wanted to, another team wanted to acquire, so they wanted to buy out their products and hire them to their own team, right? So these are like four guys out of Nigeria, and a company out of the US is trying to do that to their product, right? So they tried to do that. They built in public. So the time that he released the first prototype, because it was just a prototype, he recorded like a Figma design of prototype of what he had done and posted on Twitter and LinkedIn, and it just went viral, right? So that was a stepping stone for them. So in the times that they now built out the product and shipped, they already had a sense of hype, I think. So a good thing that they also did was that sort of worked in their favor, right? Was that they built a product that people wish that they built. So I'll explain, right? The thing about really putting products or being around people that are builders is that once the quality is high, once the buy is high, people want that. People want to copy that. So he built something that people wanted to copy, and that's a very huge compliment as someone that is building their first ever product as a designer without any experience. I mean, I think he has some PM experience working as a founding designer, as the only designer on the team. He wore multiple hats, so he understood how to cadence stuff, right? So in the interview, we talked about, okay, how did he decide what was the first thing to build, second thing, and the third thing, and the fourth thing? So, like I said, he used the framework of must have, should have, could have, and won't have. So, if it's something that users won't die, they won't die if you don't have this. This is just something I want. It's definitely not going in, right? If it's something that a user must have because their goals are, I want this thing to feel nostalgic. I want it to feel like real letters. This is going to get this. This is going to give us those outcomes. Then it must be in the MVP. It's imperative, right? So if you're able to decide, again, there's a lot of intuition that comes with this thing. There's a lot of belief system and setting out that this is my vision, this is what I want to do. Designers should have that level of visionary, play that visionary role as designers, as people that want to be founders and also designers. I'm going to be a big supporter of that, just because I believe that we are in a very interesting position to do very beautiful things and amazing things in the world. So I hope that sort of answers the question, and also answers Ugochukwu's question as well. Ugochukwu, I don't know if I answered your question. You can feel free to unmute if you're still on the call.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. That was amazing, and that perfectly answers our questions. And one of the reasons why I asked this question was, most of the times, the way some of our guys with visions here actually struggle when they're trying to push out a product. Most times when you check most of these products, even if what you're trying to push out is really good, you really need support. It's more like the music industry. Most times when you see some of these songs that kind of go viral, it's basically because of the marketing. You can even find songs that are better than that particular song, and is not up there because of marketing. And bringing the same thing into product design, when you are trying to push out a product and you're trying to maybe create like an MVP or something, when there's no funding, maybe from Y Combinator or something, or there's no hackathon to just maybe for you to prove yourself or something like that, it's kind of really hard for push through. And that insight it really broke the steps down, and it's really helpful to those that have the visions to become founder or co-founders later on. So thank you so much for that contribution. Then I'd love to take questions from my guys here. I believe yeah, I'm not even saying let's have question, but if you have question, please just raise up your hand. I'll just be taking three. So if you're contemplating, please do that quick so I can sign you up on the questions we'll be taking tonight. First of all, let me take Justina. Justina, it's so nice to have you. Welcome, and let's have your question, please.
Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Lota.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. So my question is this: I'm in the process of founding a product, and at the beginning, I've had this idea for a very long time. So it's a product that's going to bring solutions to a very particular problem. And then I was thinking if I would collaborate with designers, product managers, developers, and all of that, let us own a stake or become co-founders of this. But for a while, it took me a while. When I approach people, they tend to like, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. Then it takes months. I don't hear from them and all of that. So I said, you know what? I think I didn't want to share what my PRD was to anyone, so I kept it. And I was like, okay, I think I have to go through another approach. So I had to now leave the designing phase, and then I went to look for investors. And I was able to get an investor who was willing to invest in this product. And now I went back to most of the designers and developers that I had earlier reached out to. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay you guys to come on board and do this for me and all of that. And I'm not saying they're asking for too much, but as a small, like I'm just starting, and what my investor is bringing is not that much. But I just want to ask, are there platforms to get people to collaborate with? Because it's very difficult to find people who would want to collaborate with you or not steal your dream or anything at all. I just want to know. Thank you.
Like I think you just sold your product now because like Elizabeth Timothy wants to join and design your products. But yeah, I think that's just sort of answers is an evidence to something I'm going to give you as an answer, because I think again I'm going to talk about this guy Ayomide and Post Hearts, right? If as a first time builder, somebody that is new in the space, you have to be comfortable with building in public, right? There is no idea in this world that feels like if you feel like your idea can be stolen away from you, then that's a really that's a very counterintuitive way of getting people on board. Your role as a founder, as the visionary, is to influence people and to inspire people to come to you. If these people are not your friends specifically, or like your family members, people that know you and can understand where this vision is coming from, it's going to be hard to see the vision. Everybody wants to see the vision and be sold on it. So if you words won't cut it, they want to really understand it. You can even open it up. Like now you came here and you said, just share this thing. 2 people have said they're available to join. Right. So imagine that you came on Twitter or like a group chat or whatever, and you said, oh, I have this idea, this is da 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 da, or you shared a snippet like this guy did, right? I'm sure his intention was not to recruit people that join his team. He just shared it like, oh, this is a fun thing that I'm working on, this is what I think, and I want to do this thing, and this thing. People came on his comment and said, oh, I want to join. Are you looking for a backend developer? I didn't mention this in the story that I told, but it's on the YouTube link. Oh, do you need the backend developer? And that's how I hired the guy. Pro bono, nobody was paid for the project, right? So the more that as early time, first time founders, people that are early on, the more you can embrace building in public, the more benefits you're going to get. You find out that what was I even hiding? There was no point. Like just share as much as you can. I'm not saying you should put out your ideas there, but enough to help people see the vision. Once people can see the vision, they are going to do it for free, right? They're going to, once you can get people that really, really love what they do, they are like designers, they are developers, they love what they do, and they can understand where you're coming from as someone that is new, as someone that doesn't have any kind of funding, you're just new in the space, you don't have any YC stuff. People are going to jump on it for free. Unless the case is like, oh, you have all this funding and YC doing, why don't you pay? Right? If like for example, you just come here, you just said this thing, Elizabeth and Oladele have, you know, contributed, has opted to join you, and then you can now say, okay, I want this person because they are more aligned, or this is what I want, or I can hire everybody and we can all be a big one happy family. But I hope that answers your questions. I hope you can find more people. I'm really rooting for designers that want to become founders. Like I said, I'm a big supporter of that. Reach out to me if you have any more questions. I'm definitely available to just give any kind of advice or help that I can, support that I can give. Well done, Justina.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you so much for that contribution, Lutachi, and thank you so much for the question. I think you made the point. It's actually advisable to build in public because that's the best way to sell yourself. Like most of the time now, you can see just in a small room like this, you made this announcement and you have a couple of people waiting to join your product. What if you make it in a Twitter space of over maybe 1K people or 500 people or something like that? Then you have tons of people that are willing to contribute to what you're doing. So if you take this product to kind of a Twitter space and just pitch about it for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, you definitely find people that will support you. So it's more of you building outside and trying to protect your idea, but also trying to see how you can sell at least the least you could say about the products. And right, you definitely get those that believe in it and active contributors. So let's get one more question before we go. I don't know, do we still have a question here? Let's see, do we have any question? Let's see the hands pop up. If you're looking for someone, wow, that's buzzing. Okay, do you have questions? Okay, I think the question in the chat box too has been answered. Yeah, the question too in the chat box has been answered. So just a quick wrap. We had we just have had the section where we talked about minimum viable products. And as a product designer, aside being a founder, you also have to understand what it means to have an MVP. Because if you pick up a PRED and you're trying to interpret it, you might not be able to just push everything into one product most times. And by the time you outline your user flows and features you want to implement on that product particularly, you have to know how to maybe break down what is like what we must have, what we can have, what we should have, and what's not that necessary, right? So you'll be able to break it down and also give yourself plan, right? Give yourself plan on how to implement stuff and okay, let's push out this first version, let's do this, because everyone in your team is kind of counting on you. Once they push out this, anything you are pushing, they are counting on you as the person to give the direction on where to move, right? Although the PR is basic, but then you are the one that is building the products from the design phase and you're the one to push the product in the direction that they want. So your knowledge on what MVP means and how to navigate it literally means you know how to break down your products and get the best out of what you're doing. Not just from a design perspective, also from a marketing perspective. There are features you don't need to push out maybe once at the first launch. It should be something that will excite users maybe on another launch or just join users, or you try to see how you can use the first features you'll be implementing on the product to attract more users and see what interests them and know what to push out next. So that's my basic take on what Lutachi has said today. And I must say, I've been watching a lot of your videos recently and I'll really give you kudos on what you do. And you're really someone that we look up in the space at Pexels, from the team, from the management, from the students. We really appreciate you. We see what you do out there and we are really rooting for you and in support of you. So please, there's a link in the chat box. We have a YouTube video here that talks about Founder and you could check that out. There's also a link to a product, I think, that you could also check out and see. And also, you talked about the guys that ship stuff under 2 weeks. I really saw that and I was amazed on how they managed to do that. But then that'll be a conversation for another day. It's so nice having you in the house with us. And I don't know if you have something to say before you go, before we let you go. All right. Thank you.
I don't think so. I think that's I love what Prexos is doing. I'm happy that at least I feel like a lot of people got something out of this. If nothing, Justina got like 2 people to join her team potentially. Yeah, I'm excited to be part of this conversation. If you have any questions or have things that you want to talk about, you can text me on Twitter. I think I dropped my tag. I'll drop that again in the chat. But yeah, thanks guys. Happy Sunday.
All right, thank you so much, guys. I'll use this opportunity to appreciate everyone that came to this section. I'll use this opportunity to appreciate our speaker, our special appreciation from the Pexels team. Thank you so much for taking out your time to join us. And once again, I'll just take this time to introduce Pexels to the guys that are here, maybe meeting Pexels for the first time. Pexels is a design school that's actually run virtually, and also we have physical classes in our office at Abuja, Ibadan, Lagos State, and a whole lot of location. We successfully trained over 5,000 product designers, which we have a good record of the success rate of our designers in getting employment and everything. So if you want to check out, you could go to pexels.com or check out our IG page, our Twitter page, just check a bit about us. And literally, we are so excited to have Lutach in the house. And also, we would love to have maybe further collaboration with you and also support anything you'll be building out there. Thank you so much, Ma, for joining us. And we really appreciate your presence here today. All right, guys, it's
Thank you, guys.
Wrap up is a wrap up. We'll call this a close, and some other time we'll definitely do this again. Thank you for attending our DDS, guys. Thank you so much. Do have a nice Sunday. Thank you.
Bye, guys.